Hey there, Bill Simmons here, and today I want to talk a little bit about leadership. Now, I know if you've been in the church long enough, you're like me, maybe you've been cynical because we've heard nothing but things about leadership for years and years and years. In fact, I think that we've heard so much that sometimes it leaves us more confused and honestly sometimes feeling inadequate. The simplest description of leadership that I've ever heard actually comes from Bill Hybels, one of my great church heroes. And he says leadership is simply helping people get from here to there. How do we take them from here to there? And that's what I want to do. I want to help you as a pastor get from where you are to where you want to be. And this often requires change. But the problem is that change has become an ugly word in the church. And I don't have time to deal with my issues with that. But we really need to embrace change. But sometimes it's just become a difficult word. So I want to not try to focus on change. And instead, I want to help you shift. If you're trying to get from here to there, what are the subtle things that you need to shift to get from here to there? You may not need to change everything, but just shift a few things. And if we need to make changes or shifts in our church, I think it normally lands in one of two categories. Most of the times if we need to change something or we need to shift, it becomes about people or processes. And if you shift in the wrong place, it can have devastating consequences. And if you don't mind, I'd like to demonstrate a couple things here. And so when you're trying to change, and if you make changes in the wrong place, because if it's a process problem, but you think it's a people problem, then man, that can really mess you up. So here's what I want you to think about. Think about the church and those two categories as people and processes or systems and people. And let's imagine we have good systems. Okay? Or we have a bad system. Maybe we have bad people. Now, when I say bad people, I'm not saying that these are people whose character is in question. Think about they're bad for the position they're in or the role that they're playing. Maybe they're just simply the wrong person. But we have bad people, and sometimes we have good people. Now, what happens when you take bad people and bad systems? In other words, our processes are not good and our people, honestly, are not the right fit for all the things that we're doing. Well, then what you have here is you go out of business. Now, this is true for actually any kind of organization, whether it's a nonprofit organization, any kind of business, and it certainly is true in the church. If we have bad people or the wrong people with bad systems, it simply does not help us accomplish the things that we want to see get done. But what if you take those same people and instead of a bad system, you had good systems? Well, I submit that what you're going to get is something very, very average, consistent, and average. And now if you don't believe me, go to any franchise restaurant today, especially in the fast food world. The fast food world will take bad people or people whose skill levels are very at a low level, or sometimes even their social cues aren't even the greatest. And I'm not trying to judge people. I'm just saying these are the people that in the workforce that need the most attention. And they'll take these people and they'll connect them with a good system and they'll give you a consistently average result on a regular basis. And in our country, we call that a Big Mac. All right, so we get these constant average results. Now, what happens when you take people that are good people and connect them with a bad system? I believe what that ends up is a culture where we are constantly frustrated. And I submit to you that's where the majority of churches in America are today. We have good people but bad systems, and then people get frustrated. Have you ever sat in your office discouraged by the fact that your church just lost a really good family or some really good people? Maybe they had been involved for a while and then all of a sudden they've left and you really quite figure out why? Well, part of that is when you have good people and bad systems, this frustration gets to the point where eventually leaders ask questions and they want to figure out what's wrong. And here's what I've learned. When I'm in the church and I hear somebody say, "What's wrong?" I think that's code for whose fault is it? And when you get to that place where they're wondering whose fault it is, that frustration gets to the point where we're not able to actually leverage our relationships. And honestly, conflict and relationship take place. So if you make a mistake anywhere and you believe, and I said if you make the wrong changes, it can be devastating. Well, if you have a process problem or a system problem, but you treat it like it's a people problem, then that can devastate your church. And honestly, probably many of you as pastors have done it. I've done that. I've done that in my past where I've made the mistake thinking I had a person problem when I had a process problem. And then I burned a bridge in relationships because of that. And so I've got to be cautious to not make that mistake. I don't want to experience that devastation. But look what happens when you take good people and good systems. What happens here is you end up with above average results. And isn't that what we're all looking for? We're looking for effectiveness and results. We're getting tired of talking about what we think our church can become, but never seeing it actually get there. I submit to you that the majority of our churches need a shift from taking good people with bad systems to being good people with good systems. And part of what Church Health Solutions is all about is helping churches discover where they need to shift between the people and the processes. So in the meantime, I would love to hear from you. If you haven't liked the Church Health Solutions Facebook page, I'd encourage you right now, click the link in the email, like the page today, start making comments, ask questions. I'd love to interact with you there. And I want to build a community of pastors that really are eager to be healthier churches. You also might want to share this video. Do you have a fellow friend pastor who could be encouraged about understanding the difference between people and process? So maybe you just share this on your Facebook page or email this to a friend, because you really never know the difference that could make in helping somebody else. So until next time, just remember, Church Health Solutions stands here ready to encourage pastors and equip churches.